So let's face it, every season can bring on a full range of potential injuries that can happen that are specific to that season. So for example, in the summer, you have a lot of people that start to be a little more active and they might not have kept up with their activities during the winter. So in those seasons, you can start to see sprains, strains, low back issues, injuries that might have been there in the winter that might have been quiet, but now start to creep up again in the summer. In the spring, you start to see people going outside, gardening, raking, which we're going to demonstrate today, winter, shoveling. So lo and behold, every season brings on its different range of potential injuries. Now lately we've seen an influx of people coming in with gardening issues, with low back pain, mid back pain. So I wanted to spend a little time showing you not only how to rake, but what you can do before to help mitigate your risk of having injuries and having aches and pains that day, but more importantly the following day. We all know how it feels like the next morning and you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, what truck hit me? Was it a big truck, a small truck? But it was a truck. So one of the things you need to do, and I think a lot of people do this wrong, is they come out before doing an activity and they're starting to stretch, right? And the problem is that if you took a cold elastic, let's say out of the freezer, and you stretched it, what happens? It breaks, right? So you never want to stretch a cold muscle. What you want to do is you want to warm it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a few little activities that you can do to warm up the muscles, and then I'll show you how to practically rake a little bit better than what you have probably been raking. So you're watching Double Doc Talk. I'm Dr. Clayton Roach, and every week we show you practical things that you can do at home. So make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, we're everywhere. And hopefully you're appreciating this content because it's all about doing the small things right. We often think about the big things, but if you do the small things right, you typically don't get big problems. So here's one thing you can do before raking. Obviously you're working your torso, you're working your shoulders. So just doing a little warm up for your shoulders, doing small circles, make the circles get bigger, and then you can reverse it, do small circles again but in the opposite direction, and then start to go with bigger circles, and you'll start to feel a burn. And you want to do this for about 2 to 3 minutes just to warm up your shoulders. You can step on the treadmill if you want, but all you want to do is you want to warm up those muscles that you're going to be using when you're raking. So one of the issues that we see with people raking is, one, it's not an activity that most people love doing. Just be honest with yourself. So what we do is we start to do this, and we're doing it in a rotational manner. So what we're doing is we're rotating our torso, our rib cage, and that's typically where you're going to have an issue with your back the next day, in your middle back and in your lower back. When you think about it, our discs in our lower back do not like when you're bending forward and turning. It's at that point that the disc is the most vulnerable. And the disc inside is water and protein, and what happens, you can push the disc off to the side where the nerve is, and all of a sudden you've got a disc bulge, nerve pain, sciatic pain, and then you're calling us as your chiropractor to fix it. So instead of rotating like this and going fast, and then all of a sudden you see something over here and you don't pivot, you just reach for it, this is where you're going to get in trouble. So what you need to do is you need to rake towards you. And as you're moving, you're going to pivot your feet along with the rake. So you're constantly doing this, and then you can back up and constantly. So what you're doing is you're like a boxer with a rake, right? And you're shifting your position so that you're always facing forward and facing the direction that you're raking. So when you back up with your feet. You want to go into the next row, you go forward, and you bring it towards you. Never reach and never turn, right? Very similar to when you're vacuuming, you want to do the same thing with the vacuum and not reach and turn. So that's when you're going to have a problem with your disc. So number one, make sure that you're warming up the muscles you're going to be using. Circles, right, with your shoulders. And then what you want to do is make sure that biomechanically what you're doing and the position you're putting your body makes sense, right? This never makes sense. So always pivot your feet along with the rake, and that way you're raking towards you and not doing this. And you know, people were raking not too long ago, and I was watching everybody that was raking, and that's exactly what they were doing. The rake goes in the back and you're doing this. So you're keeping your body twisted and you're applying pressure and shear forces on that disc, and then wondering why the next day you feel like you're 75 and ready to die. So don't do that. Do it the proper way. And the biggest thing that I can probably recommend is don't try to do the whole lawn in one day, right? Give it a break. Rake for about a half hour, go do something else, plant some flowers, change your position, because anything we do for a prolonged period of time in the same position is what's going to give us a problem. So you've been listening to Double Doc Talk with Dr. Clayton Roach. Again, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and just practical stuff that you can do every single day. We share this information every week. Like us, and make sure to comment in the section, because we actually read those comments and can probably answer some of your questions that you might have. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.